Well, good morning. My name is Amanda Turnin. I am a project manager with Health Management Associates, and I am here to kick off the Data Dictionary walkthrough training for the CARE Act data collection and reporting. Today, we have two presenters with us. We have Cha Lee and Lauren Niles, both from HMA. HMA is DHCS's training and technical assistance contractor for the CARE Act project, and HMA provides project management support and TTA coordination activities, in addition to providing support for data collection and reporting for the CARE Act. This includes developing and managing the data collection and reporting process, including the tools to be able to support that data collection, supporting County BH on their data collection efforts, and supporting the development of the annual report. We also assist DHCS's independent evaluator contractor with data collection to help determine program outcomes, impact, and lessons learned related to the CARE Act program. Before the training, we had encouraged you all to check out our CARE Act data collection and reporting resource page, and specifically to make sure that you were familiar with the CARE Act data dictionary and the CARE Act data flowchart prior to this training. However, if you did not have an opportunity to review those resources, we will be referencing those throughout the training. Today's training objectives are to, by the end of this session, you should be able to have some more experience and be familiar with navigating the CARE Act data dictionary, describing which care respondents from trial courts and clients from County BH will be tracked over time, distinguish the measurement periods for data collection, and understand the structure and format of the data elements to guide standardized reporting. So on our agenda today, we will briefly go over the CARE Act data requirements, both for data collection and annual reporting, a brief introduction to the data dictionary and summarize the purpose of the data dictionary, walk through the data dictionary instructions on how to navigate through the data dictionary, and spend some time on the care process and measurement periods. We will also show the data specifications, including the structure and the format of data elements, including how to use these data element specifications to guide standardized reporting. We'll also dive into, and this is new if you attended a previous data collection, data dictionary training, or have viewed the one on the Resource Center, do a deeper dive into the driver of data reporting requirements on the care status detail. So information on how to correctly populate this key data point in data submissions, and then an overview of the data dictionary appendices. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put those in chat, and members of our HMA Data Team that are in attendance today will do their best to answer them throughout the presentation. We're hoping to have a few minutes at the end to open it up for Q&A, but we will be looking through the chat, and we will be providing contact information at the end if your question did not have an opportunity to get answered during the session. This session will be recorded, and you will be receiving a copy of the slide deck as well. So with those introductions, I'm happy to turn it over to Lauren Niles.
Thanks, Amanda. So we're going to kick off by first talking about just a general overview of the CARE Act data dictionary requirements. Go to the next slide, please. Great. So we want to start by briefly orienting you to kind of the why behind the data dictionary. DHCS is required to develop and publish an annual report with specified information included in it. The BIN, or the Behavioral Health Information Notice, was released in October of 2023, and it provided guidance to the counties on the data reporting requirements to monitor performance of the CARE Act model. It's DHCS's responsibility to ensure that counties are equipped to be able to collect necessary information, and as such, it's also DHS's responsibility for developing and maintaining a data dictionary to ensure the standardized data collection of information, to develop a data tool to collect that information, to assist with ongoing TA to support counties, and also to ensure data quality assurance. The data dictionary, which is, of course, the topic of our session today, outlines DHCS and county responsibilities for data collection and reporting to support annual reporting on CARE Act implementation. There is a link to the current data dictionary I saw that's already dropped into the chat. But if you're not familiar with that, it would be a great time to go ahead and open that up in your browser. Next slide. So to provide a little bit of broader context on the data dictionary, this slide is showing DHCS's responsibility related to reporting on the CARE Act legislation. So there are 2 general reports that are to be developed per legislation. The first is an annual report or a series of annual reports, and then the second is an independent evaluation of CARE. Currently, our focus is on the data collection and reporting to support the annual report. RAND Corporation is the contracted independent evaluator that will be working on the independent evaluation report. The focus of the annual report is to monitor the implementation of the CARE Act. This includes data on leading outcomes to assess the impact of care over time. It also includes performance indicators that are tracking care engagement and use of services and supports among care clients, with attention to key demographic information to support disparity reduction efforts. Data collected for the annual report will feed into the independent evaluation, and DHCS is coordinating both efforts really closely. Next slide. We're going to transition next to talk through the different sections of the data dictionary. The first one is the introduction section. So in this section, the data dictionary provides a brief overview of the origins of the data dictionary and what's contained in the document, specifically the purpose of the data dictionary and how it's to be used, how it was developed, and the information is provided in part in this introduction section. The purpose really of the data dictionary is to specify the structure and content of data that's to be collected and reported per statute. So inside the data dictionary, you'll find detailed specifications for each of the data elements and associated data points. The CARE Act Data Dictionary was developed to define the data elements and really aid county behavioral health agencies and the Judicial Council in fulfilling annual reporting requirements. Related to the development of the data dictionary, we did want to just note that significant efforts were made to align where possible with existing state data dictionaries. So for example, Medi-Cal or CalOMS, the Full Service Partnership, for example. For data elements where there were not existing data points or definitions from the state or other commonly used program, the developers spent a lot of time looking at industry standards or evidence-informed typologies to fill in those gaps. Next slide, please. A little bit more of an orientation to the data dictionary. You're going to find 4 main sections, the introduction section as we just went through, but also you'll find the instructions, the CARE Act data specifications themselves, really kind of the meat of the data dictionary, as well as a set of appendices. Next slide. So we want to spend a little time talking about the instructions section next. The instruction section of the data dictionary provides, and this is on the next slide, thanks, information on how to navigate and use the data dictionary for data collection and reporting purposes. It's really our recommendation that you spend some time in this section and review it carefully. It really contains a lot of important information that's going to help you understand the data collection and reporting responsibilities, both at the county level and for JC. Next slide, please. So over the next few slides, we're going to go into more detail on the CARE process and how data collection processes and data points will differ depending on where a client is in the CARE process and who is reporting that data and who is delivering services to the client. There's a lot of nuance. But at a high level, there's kind of 2 data sources. The Judicial Council, or JC, is responsible for capturing and reporting on trial court data for all petitioned respondents. Importantly, the data that JC is collecting and reporting on is at the aggregate level, meaning that nothing they're reporting on is going to include participant level information, such as demographic characteristics of the individuals that are moving through the court process. As a reminder, the courts are submitting their data directly to JC. If you have any questions on the JC data or what's required, please see the Judicial Resources Network, or you could reach out to us at care.act.data@jud.ca.gov. And that is going to be linked in the resources. County behavioral health agencies are responsible for capturing individual level respondent data on care petitions that are initiated by county behavioral health and petitions for which the court orders county behavioral health to investigate and file a written report. At the individual level, basic information for all petitions that flow through the counties are required. So this is also going to include demographic information of those clients. For petitions that result in an individual receiving county supports and services, county behavioral health agencies are going to be responsible for tracking 3 distinct groups. The first group is clients with a care plan. The second is clients with a care agreement. And then the third are what we call elective clients, those that are former care respondents who meet prima facie and care criteria, but are diverted to county services and supports through voluntary engagement, resulting in the petition being dismissed by the court. The next slide, the next few slides actually are going to be some high-level kind of overviews of the care process and, specifically how that relates to what counties are going to be reporting. So important to our conversation today is to orient you to when the data is collected for the purposes of care evaluation. There are 3 distinct periods of data collection. There's the care process initiation period, the active service period, and the follow-up period. The first period is that care process initiation period, where county behavioral health is going to report data as a baseline prior to that active service period beginning. In the active service period, the counties are reporting data on care participants and elective clients from the start of their service delivery until one of the following occurs, whichever comes first. Either the client is terminated from county services, they graduate from the care process, or they've gone through 12 months of voluntary county services. And then finally, that follow-up period, counties are expected to report data on clients who continue to receive county behavioral health services outside of care for up to a year after their active service period or discharge occurs, whichever comes first. Next slide, please. This is another schematic, and these slides will be available, so please also spend time reviewing these. But this shows in more detail how the care process relates to county behavioral health data collection and reporting. Individuals with CARE Act petitions are called care respondents, and care respondents are flowing through the hearing process within the courts, which is reported on by the JC, as we talked about earlier. Ultimately, care respondent cases are dismissed or they receive a care plan or care agreement. At this point, they'll move from JC reporting into the county level reporting. And we want to highlight again, there are 3 groups of care respondents that are going to be tracked by county behavioral health. Those with a care plan, a court-ordered care plan, those with a court-approved care agreement, or elective clients who are diverted to county services and supports through voluntary engagement. Next slide, please. And this slide shows in a bit more detail the 3 distinct measurement periods we spoke about on a few slides back, and the 3 care disposition pathways. So again, care plan, care agreement, and elective clients. To reiterate, the active service period begins across these 3 pathways when treatment begins. The active service period concludes, again, whenever a client is terminated from county services and supports, graduates from the care process, or finishes up their 12th month of voluntary county services and supports. Termination, when we say the word termination, that's defined as premature exit from county services and supports, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Data on clients that move through the care process will be collected monthly during all 3 of these measurement periods. If clients under a care agreement or plan are diverted for any reason to voluntary county services outside of the care process during their 12-month active service period, counties are still going to be required to report that data monthly for the full 12-month active and the 12-month follow-up periods. Next slide, please. The next thing we wanted to cover is how county behavioral health agencies actually submit data to DHCS. There are 2 submitting mechanisms. The first is SurveyMonkey. So many of you are familiar with SurveyMonkey. It's a cloud-based service used to host the CARE Act data collection and reporting tool. This tool includes all of the logic already built into it. So it only is going to require counties to report data points that are relevant to a client's current care status. For the counties that prefer manual data entry, this is a great option. You'll be actually entering data on each of the care participants. The second option is using a file template and uploading it through the Move It file transfer application. So for county behavioral health agencies that don't want to enter data into SurveyMonkey manually for each respondent, they can use the Move It data submission option. For those that aren't familiar, MoveIt is a mechanism for the transfer of data. It's already used by DHCS. This will work by the county actually using one of two file formats, option A and option B. And counties can select either of those that works better for them. It aligns with the structure of the CARE Act data dictionary, and you would populate that data automatically, ideally, and upload it through MoveIt. Both of the templates, option A and B, are located in the resource folder of MoveIt. Importantly, although there are these two options for submitting data, counties can only choose one mechanism to submit the data for each reporting quarter. So one, SurveyMonkey, or two, the MoveIt option. Next slide, please. This slide here is outlining the reporting schedule that will be used. So counties can submit their data monthly if preferred, or you could wait until the end of the reporting quarter to report on all 3 months in that quarter. So the table here on the right has some of the submission deadlines and aligns that with the reporting period. So you can see data from January 1st through March 31st is due May 30th, and so on. Counties must adhere to this reporting and submission schedule regardless of when you actually begin implementation. This means that even if a county is implementing CARE in the middle of a reporting period, they still are required to submit their data by the submission deadline that's immediately following that period. Next slide, please. Great. And we wanted to briefly touch on the data compliance standards that the county behavioral health agencies are required to follow. To assure the quality of data that's being collected for this evaluation, we're following the CART dimensions that have been used by DHCS for managed care plans. So these are really the industry standard for quality assurance dimensions. HMA is going to be examining all data collected from counties for completeness, accuracy, reasonability, and timeliness, whether the data is submitted through the SurveyMonkey or the MoveIt options. When we talk about completeness, what we're really talking about is looking for missing, surplus, or duplicative data. When we're talking about accuracy, we're looking for typos or questionable records. For reasonability, we're checking if the individual data seems valid and the data set taken as a whole seems plausible. And in terms of timeliness, we're looking for the timely submission of data. We are going to be hosting a separate training just on quality assurance in early 2025, and we hope you'll join us for that. And at this point, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Charlie. He's going to take us through the remainder of the slides.
Next, we will discuss the third section of the CARE Act Data Dictionary, so the CARE Act Data Specification. This slide right here, it actually highlight county behavioral health reporting requirement. Each data point included in the data dictionary is attributed to a data element. Here you can see the data elements included in the data dictionary. So it is from 3.3 basic client information all the way to 3.13 hospitalization and ED visit. County are required to report individual level data for data elements and point as relevant to each specific client. After reviewing the data specification and format on the next slide, we then will be going to show an example of a critical data point, which is 3.3.10 current care status. For each data point in the CARE Act Data Dictionary, we use a standardized data specification and format. This will help users easily navigate the data dictionary and find the information they need. Here you can see a generic specification. You can see each data point specification include a unique identifier and name for the data point and data element. It also includes detail on how the data point is collected and detail on how the data is formatted, including variable type, like if it is numeric or if it is a text, with value code and format. The specification at the bottom will also include information on the measurement period the data point is collected in, the source of the data, if the data is at the aggregated level or the individual level, and any additional detail necessary to collect and report the data with validity and reliability. Next, please. As mentioned on the previous slide, each data point has an individual specification in the data dictionary with standardized information. Here we are showing like 3.3.10 current care status. So we're gonna like basically walk through this data point. So on here, right, you can see that the data point, it is numeric, and its value must be correspond to a number from like 1 to 8. Yeah, so on the value code section, so only 1 to 8 is actually acceptable. The county behavioral health agency are responsible for collecting this data point at all measurement period for every like individual. That is like this data point is like basically gonna be report every reporting month. Because this data element is like basically specific to the CARE Act, so this data point was not derived from any other state existing data source. Under the additional specification, we also describe when there is a change in care status. So that's going to trigger reporting of different data point. This indicates the branching structure of the rest of the like basically required data. And we will like basically walk through this with more detail about the additional specification in a later slide. Next. Next, we would like to spend some time basically discussing the care status data point as it is of a critical importance for data reporting. So that's going to be 3.3.10 current care status. Yeah. So the current care status data point, basically it is considered part of the basic client information. It is part, it is of particular importance because how you actually respond to this data point for a client, it determines which data points are required for reporting. In other words, we think of this data point as a driver data point, as it helps guide data collection of required data point. So 3.3.10 current care status must be like reported every reporting month. Yeah. Next, please. Right here we have a flow chart. So basically it shows how 3.3.10 determine further data collection and reporting. So at the top right there, right, you can see that basic client information and demographic information is required for all care respondents that flow through county behavioral health, regardless of whether they end up receiving county behavioral health services and support or not. Potential care status is shown here in purple, so you can look at the purple box. Those are the care status. You can see if additional data collection and reporting will be required below each purple box. You will see that not all data points are going to be required for all clients. Note that a client care status can change over time. Clients who are ineligible for care or those who do not end up receiving county behavioral health services will not be tracked further by county behavioral health. So if the client is basically ineligible and being dismissed, when you look at the flow chart, technically we just want the petition date of dismissal. Yeah, so we just want that, and after that, it's gonna end the survey. For this flow chart, the full flow chart has been provided as a resource in PDF form to accompany this training. You can download the flowchart from the resource directly from the website in the resource library or on the training page. Yeah, so we put a copy on there, and you can just download a copy from there. So next, please. As you will recall from the previous slide, client can move between care status throughout their time in the care process. It is important that the data associated with each status is reported as there are differences in the data point reported as client moves through the care process. It is likely that a client will basically move between care status during the course of a single month. If a client complete their care process initiation period and become an active service client during a month, data from the initiation period and the first month of active service will have to be submitted in the same month. This means that for that month where a client has two statuses, right, multiple data submission will be required for the same client in that month. This will be covered in our later training on data submission, but at a high level, this will look like either two service submission for an individual client in a month or two rows of data for a single client in the data file submission. And we have an example on the right here. So for example, right, if a client moved from the initiation to active service period on February 7, in the middle of the month, the county will submit data for the care process initiation period for the first 7 days of the month, and then data from the active service period for the remaining day of the month. Yeah. For clients who are dismissed by the court during the care process initiation period, all known data associated with this measurement period are required. For example, like housing, detention, LPS, conservatorship, criminal status, arrest, etc. In addition to data associated with the relevant dismissed status, like option 2, 3, or 4. Yeah. Next, please. Next, we will discuss what to do if a client care status change during the 12-month active service period. A couple of scenarios are showing on this slide. Yeah. So the first one, like if a client is dismissed from their care agreement or care plan during the active service period and directed to continue voluntary support and services outside of the court process, the client should be designated as what? On data point 3.3.10, like county should select option 4, elected client. And once they do that, county should also continue to report this client data for 12 months of active service from the start date of care agreement or care plan, as well as provide follow-up data for an additional 12 months. We also have a second scenario here. So in the second scenario, a client is terminated from the care plan or care agreement or elective services during the active service period for any reason, right? Like the client refused to be on the care process, the client moved, or county are not able to locate the client. This client should be designated as what? On 3.3.10, county should select option 7, termination, right? So in this case, right, county should report data associated with option 7, technically. Next, please. And here we provided a flow chart to basically better understand of the two scenarios. So when you are in the active service period, right? If you are being dismissed and you are diverted to county support and services, so on the left, you're gonna go to like option 4 on 3.3.10. So there'll be option 4. If you are if a client actually like terminated for any reason, right? Like they refuse to be in the care process, they cannot be located, then technically county gonna basically go on the right and basically choose option 7, termination. Yeah. So we provide this flow chart just for a better understanding. Next, please. And here, like basically for client whose care initiation period spans several months due to difficulty locating or engaging the client, extension of proceeding, or other reason, county behavioral health agency should report client data for each month, updating information about the client during each month the client is in the care process initiation period. Yeah. Next, please. And then we're gonna jump to like the appendice of the data dictionary. The appendice in the data dictionary include like additional information on specific data element. Over the next couple of slides, we want to like highlight two key appendices. So it's gonna be Appendix A and Appendix B, as they are very, very helpful to orienting people to overall care data collection and reporting requirement. Appendix C through Appendix G outline like additional specification for data point referencing in the data dictionary, and this Appendix C can be found in the data dictionary, and we will not like summarize like Appendix C through G here. Yeah. Carly, can you go back to Appendix A? Slide Appendix A. Yeah. So on Appendix A right here, Basically, it actually lists all the reporting requirement and metrics as required by the statute for Judicial Council and County Behavioral Health Agency. It also includes like the requirement to conduct an independent evaluation of the CARE Act. Yep. And next gonna be Appendix B, right? We created a summary table here, and it is very, very useful. So Appendix B gonna be used to assist JC and County Behavioral Health Agency with data collection and reporting. We also make this summary table available on the resource library and also on the training page. And we always like recommend county when they are doing like data collection or data reporting. We always recommend county to have it handy. Like just like open it up when you are doing like data collection, it's gonna help a lot. Yeah. So we always recommend like county to have this open, including JC. And next I would like to pass to my colleague Serene for Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Cha and Lauren, for the presentation. We would like to open the floor actually to anyone on the call who has any questions related to data reporting and submission to DHCS. You can either drop your question into the chat or feel free to come off mute and ask your question. I see a raised hand, Megan. Go ahead, Megan.
Hi, thank you, Serene. Back to slide 28 that Cha was presenting on tracking two separate statuses for a client. So where they are given a care agreement or plan, then we need to track them for 12 months from that date, but then their status changes to terminated, and we would no longer continue tracking them. But since they had a care agreement plan, it sounds like we will track terminated clients for 12 months from the date of their care agreement or plan, regardless of their status. I don't really understand how we could show a client in two different statuses every month to continue tracking them.
So a point for clarification, Megan. So if a client is prematurely exited from a care plan or agreement, typically because the county is unable to locate or the client has now, for whatever reasons, it's unable to participate in the care court process and are, no longer receiving services from the county. In that case, the county will no longer presumably have any contact with this client. If that's the case, you would then select option 7, which is the terminated status. And in which case, the expectations that the counties will no longer need to track that client for 12 months. On the other hand, if the client is dismissed from a care agreement or a plan during the 12-month active service period and they are diverted for voluntary services and supports, in that case, the county is still continuing to provide services and supports for that client. The expectation in that case is that they will continue to report the services and supports that are being provided to the client for the full 12 months, and then to continue to follow them up for another 12 months, assuming that they are receiving county supports and services throughout that period. Does that make sense? Carl, did you mind popping over to the next slide? And maybe this will be an easier way to kind of think through it, Megan. So if you go to the pathway on the left, which is an active care agreement or a plan, which has been dismissed, right? And so the client is now diverted to continue to receive services outside of the court process. You will continue to report on a slew of additional data associated with the services and supports that they are receiving. On the other hand, if the client is terminated because they're no longer receiving services and supports, then you essentially report the termination date, the reason for the termination, and then your responsibility for tracking the client ends at that point because they're no longer receiving county services. Does that make better sense?
Yes. It's specifically the dismissed for termination is the ones we stop tracking, but dismissed for other reasons will have a different status and we'll keep tracking them. That's clear. Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. There is a question from Sarah. Sarah, can you talk about what you mean by will there be a testing stage?
So I have just taken over the CARE Act data collection and kind of the CARE Act for our behavioral health in Mariposa County. And every time I'm handed state reporting, and it's going in to move it, there's kind of a testing stage to make sure that the files are clean and that there aren't massive amounts of errors and issues, and then the data gets convoluted and things along those lines. Will there be a testing stage within Move It, or are we just going straight into production?
Char, I wonder if you can talk about that.
For the first cohort, we actually go directly into like production. If you want to see how either how the template is supposed to work or how SurveyMonkey is supposed to work, you can use like the test link for SurveyMonkey, and then you can also use the template that we provided in the resource folder to just like do a quick test on that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Sarah, there's also, which we have a training scheduled for early next year as you get closer to, having your first data due. We do have a quality assurance process where, once you submit your data for the first time, the HMA Data Team will review it, provide you back a quality assurance report with pass-fail measures, which we have another training on that to provide that information. And so you'll have an opportunity to make corrections for any errors that may have been identified, submit that data.
Perfect. That's great. We like to implement whatever we can within the EHR to make pulling that data as easy as possible.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense, Sarah. And I think, as Lauren mentioned, in terms of data submission, we also have mentioned to counties that if they would prefer to submit the data monthly, that's another good opportunity, especially at the beginning, to get early feedback, if you will, on the data that you submit. So I think, as Lauren mentioned, within the Move It environment, the data file transfer environment, there is a resources folder, and that's where you can download the templates. And as Cha mentioned, we will also be providing a SurveyMonkey link where you can, do some testing, play around with the SurveyMonkey tool to become familiar with it. And there will be, as Amanda mentioned, opportunities for correcting any deficiencies or, post-submission.
And we do know that once you request access to Move It, it can take some time to get that access granted. And once you submit your user access request, at that time, you can be provided a copy of the data file template as you're waiting to get access to that resource folder. But you do first have to submit a Move It user request to get to be able to get those templates ahead of time.
Perfect. Thank you.
And we can move through, Serene, just to go over some upcoming trainings and resources, and then we can stay online throughout the rest of the hour for any additional questions for individuals who'd like to stay on, if they might have a more county-specific question that they would like to discuss. We do have another live training August 6th. This one will cover in more detail the data submission options, give you a walkthrough of what those data file templates look like, and the SurveyMonkey file, and we'll actually do a live demo of that. So that registration link is already available, so we encourage you to register. And then, as I mentioned a few minutes ago to Sarah, we do have the quality assurance process training that will occur most likely in January, but we'll be providing an update when that is scheduled. Please make sure that you do join our listserv, sign up to be a data collection and reporting team member, and you do get some targeted data collection and reporting information. So one update that we did for those of you who are on the CARE Act Resource Center is we did create a data collection and reporting resources separate library. So we consolidated all of the data collection and reporting resources on one tab to make that easier for you to find what you're looking for. After this presentation, by next week, we'll have the recording from this session as well as the deck. You can also request technical assistance using the data collection and reporting TTA form. And we do host bi-weekly office hours. These are just drop in as you want, stay as long as you want within that 30 minutes. We have cohort 1 attends regularly, and still goes over specific questions. We have some individuals who just want to listen in on what other questions there might be. So feel free just to come, bring a specific question, or just listen in. As I mentioned, we do encourage you to sign up for the listserv, and when you select data collection and reporting for your primary CARE Act role, that will ensure you get this targeted data collection and reporting emails. And as we mentioned, all counties must have an authorized Move It user, even if you already have Move It for another process or project. You do still need to complete it for the CARE Act because it gives you CARE Act access to your specific folders. So your team members would still need to do that on the Move It access form. It does take some time to get access, so we encourage you to sign up and request that access soon. I think we're down to only 8 counties remaining that still have not requested Move It user access, so that's great, and we're happy to answer any additional questions you might have on that. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Serene. I saw some additional questions come through.
Yeah, so there was a question from Megan regarding whether or not counties should be submitting data about services and supports that have a claim. So the response to that is you should submit data on all services and supports that you provide or that the care client receives, regardless of whether or not you submit a claim for that specific service or support. So we really want to capture the variety of services and supports that counties are providing to the client, regardless of whether or not you get paid for it through via a claim. So hopefully that's clear. I'm going to see if it looks like there's one more question. What about how many counties have been granted Move It access of those who have requested it? I don't know.
Yeah, so the DHES care team is the one that receives the Move It user request. And if they're on, I'm happy to have them speak to this. I can guarantee you that once that request is received, they work internally with the DHES IT department to get through all the different steps to grant access. It is a 2-part process where you do get an email and you have to confirm the email. And then it'll be a second step to actually get access to that folder. I'm looking at the stats and if, let's see here. I think we have about 9 out of the cohort 2 counties that have had the access granted. I think about 33 are pending. This number changes hourly, so that could be different. But if you have a specific question about where your request is in the process, there is an email on the Resource Center, and Carly, if you can drop that into chat for the DHS care team for that Move It, you can always email them and they're happy to provide an update to that status.
Yeah. And I think as Amanda mentioned before, it can take a while. So, we appreciate patience, which is why I think even though some of you may not be implementing care until the end of the year, we really encourage you to start getting access now because it can take a while. And if you have already submitted a request for Move It access, Carly just dropped an email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to that mailbox to let them know that you are still pending access to the Move It folder. So that's a 2-part, there's the Move It file application itself. And then once you get that, you actually have to respond back and then you get access to the specific care folder. So you will see a care folder, and within that, you should be seeing a folder with your county folder, as well as a resources folder in which there will be the templates that Cha had mentioned previously. And on August 8th, one of our data team will be walking everyone through, how to get it into the Move It file transfer application, show you how to get access to the folders and what you would be seeing within those. So hopefully that helps clarify it. You have about 10 minutes.
Serene, are the office hours this Thursday, the biweekly office hours?
So the bi-weekly office hours, good question, Amanda. So there's actually a bi-weekly office hour tomorrow. I believe it's at, I want to say it's at 1 p.m., but let me double check. So we have bi-weekly office hours every other Wednesday. So the next one is actually tomorrow. And I believe it is at, Carly, help me if I'm wrong on this. Let me double check I believe it's at 1 p.m. Correct, Charles? Is it 1 p.m.? So 1 p.m. Pacific
Correct.
time.
It's at 1 p.m.
It is at 1 p.m. Okay, just
Yep.
want to make sure we are. And
Yeah, and correct, Monique, I see your question. Again, since the data collection and reporting is very specific to the data collection team, we try not to post some of those trainings on the upcoming training section on the website, just because the website is open to all California stakeholders. And so that's why we do encourage you to join that listserv. We will be sending out actually a newsletter listserv on Thursday, and that will also include the registration link, but Carly has just dropped it in the chat as well. If you're ever looking for something you can't find, always feel free to reach out to info@careact.org, and we're happy to provide you that information.
right. Yeah, thanks, Carly, for dropping in both the August training for the data file options training, as well as the registration for the bi-weekly office hours. And as Amanda mentioned, those are open office hours, so people tend to come with either very specific questions that is specific to their counties, or they use that time to actually check in with their county colleagues to understand processes and get tips about how to get started, or how to or to troubleshoot any issues that they may have. So on our last few open office hours, there have been exchange of information regarding kinds of platforms people are using, how people are getting started, how people are working with their courts, as well as other stakeholders in the process for collecting the data that is in the data dictionary. Are there any lessons to share from what cohort 1 counties are finding? So we, I believe it was on April 9th, HMA did host a Care Data Affinity group with a panel of cohort 1 counties. We are working to come up with a resource so that we can share more details about some of the lessons learned from cohort 1 counties. It was a panel of, I think, 6 out of the 8 counties who shared how they got started, et cetera, et cetera. So we're working on something that I think we can share out with cohort 2 counties with more specificity than what is currently in the implementation toolkit. So we're working on that, and we'll be sure to get that out.
And we're also always happy to help facilitate any conversations. If there's a county that you feel like you have similar processes to that's already implemented CARE Act and want to be connected, we're happy to help try to facilitate those conversations based on their availability. The HMA Data Team is also available for one-on-one TA. So if you really have just some very county-specific questions or suggestions as you start mapping out your data flow with your care process, you can request a one-on-one TA call as well. All right. Well, thank you all for your time today. We're happy to stay on, and the rest of you can drop if you don't have any additional questions. We will be getting the recording and the deck out, and we hope to hear from you soon.